It's been 15 or longer years since I got.
Now, shoved by Andre and the champion retains.
This is what this business is all about, and we know that.
In the glittering world of professional wrestling, few figures loomed as large as Hulk Hogan. Terry, Hulk Hogan Bollea, captivated millions with his patriotic fervor, rippling muscles, and trademark Hulkamania catchphrases. By all outward appearances, he was the all-American hero, a devoted husband, doting father, and role model to countless fans. Yet on March 27, 2025, that carefully constructed image came crashing down when his daughter Brooke, now 36 and mother to newborn twins, broke a lifetime of silence. In a meticulously prepared statement, Brooke detailed years of mental, verbal, and physical abuse perpetrated by both her father and mother, Linda Hogan. As her court testimony continues to unfold, an ever more disturbing picture emerges, one of substance addiction, racism, and the very forces that likely contributed to Hogan's declining health and eventual death. Brooke's bombshell. Brooke Hogan's decision to go public was neither spontaneous nor sensationalist. It was the culmination of decades spent collecting evidence, seeking therapy, and wrestling with trauma in private. Her statement, delivered with clinical precision, described a childhood marred by relentless verbal assaults, nasty nicknames flung in public, humiliating text messages read aloud, and taunts designed to erode her confidence. She spoke of gaslighting tactics that made her question her own perceptions, as well as unprovoked physical violence, slaps across the face, hair-pulling, and aggressive pushes that left her in tears. After years of turning the other cheek, for the sake of family unity and public image, Brooke reached a point where protection of her own well-being demanded exposure of the truth. By deliberately severing ties with her parents, skipping her father's wedding in 2023, excluding them from her own marriage in 2022, and denying them even a hint of involvement in the birth of her twins in 2025, Brooke underscored the irrevocable damage done to her life. Corroboration from within. Perhaps unexpectedly, Todd "Bubba the Love Sponge" Clem, once a close associate of the Hogans and central figure in the infamous 2012 sex tape scandal, lent Brooke's claims additional weight. During his recent divorce deposition, Bubba recounted chilling scenes he witnessed at the Hogan family dinner table. Linda Hogan striking Brooke with slaps and hair pulls for no reason beyond normal childhood missteps, such as accidentally spilling a glass of Coca-Cola. His testimony described these episodes as neither isolated nor provoked, but rather symptomatic of an environment where abusive outbursts became disturbingly routine. Crucially, Bubba's willingness to corroborate Brooke's account under oath, despite his fraught history with the family, has shifted Brooke's allegations from private grievance to legally actionable evidence. The facade of Hogan Knows Best. Between 2005 and 2007, Hogan Knows Best presented audiences with what appeared to be a loving, if somewhat overprotective, family dynamic. Viewers saw Hogan fretting over Brooke's adolescent dating life, while Linda played the gentle mediator, guiding father and daughter toward compromise. Yet behind the cameras, the carefully staged scenes concealed a very different reality. Television executive Eric Bischoff later reflected that the show's exposure of private disputes to a national audience likely exacerbated cracks in the Hogan marriage, turning their personal struggles into public spectacle, without ever resolving the underlying issues. Brooke has since described feeling used as a pawn, coerced into defending her father's worst moments, including his 2007 racist tirade, under threat that refusal would betray both family and fans. In this light, Hogan Knows Best emerges not as a celebration of family values, but as a performance that masked the deep dysfunction lurking just off stage. The hidden vices destroying Hogan from within. While the world admired Hogan's on-screen vitality, he was in fact battling demons off-camera, most notably chronic pain and a crippling addiction to prescription opioids. Years of high-impact wrestling had wrecked his body, and after his 10th major surgery, pharmacies routinely refilled his painkiller prescriptions long after any medical need had passed. Hogan himself admitted to chasing the euphoric effects of these medications, comparing himself to a dog chasing a bone each time the pharmacy called with a refill notice. The addiction robbed him of emotional availability during Brooke's formative years, leaving her to cope with her father's volatile moods and frequent unresponsiveness. Equally destructive was Hogan's long-standing alcohol abuse. He revealed that after matches he would consume up to a dozen beers simply to numb pain and quell performance anxiety. This pattern of heavy drinking extended into family and professional settings, fueling erratic behavior, impaired judgment, and heated confrontations with loved ones. It was not until January 2023, after witnessing behavior at a New Year's Eve party that he found unacceptable, that Hogan finally resolved to quit drinking. However, by then, decades of substance dependency had already corroded his most important relationships and greatly undermined his ability to parent. The 2015 racist tape. In 2015, Hogan's career suffered its most explosive setback when a 2007 sex tape transcript leaked, revealing not only a sordid affair, but also a torrent of racist slurs aimed at his own daughter's choices. During the recording with Heather Clem, Hogan repeatedly expressed disgust at Brooke dating black men, deploying the N-word in a manner so vile that WWE suspended him from its Hall of Fame. At the time, Brooke publicly defended her father, portraying his words as taken out of context and insisting he was not truly racist. In retrospect, that defense appears emblematic of the coercive atmosphere in which she was raised, expected to uphold the Hogan brand even as it betrayed her personal dignity. The scandal cost Hogan endorsements, fractured fan trust, and inflicted deep emotional wounds on Brooke herself, forcing her to toe the line between public loyalty and private anguish. The legal battles and courtroom revelations. Brooke's courtroom filings in 2025 have laid bare a pattern of abuse supported by a wealth of documentation. Dated text messages, insecure voicemails, and sworn statements from family friends and former staff. She has described being summoned to reading humiliating passages aloud in public, then punished physically when she showed distress, and mentally manipulated through gaslighting and emotional intimidation. Bubba Clem's deposition served as a particularly damning affirmation that the violence was neither rare nor provoked, but a steady undercurrent of her childhood home. Additionally, Brooke's legal team has argued that the cumulative stress from decades of abuse, combined with Hogan's substance dependencies, materially contributed to the deterioration of his own health, suggesting that the private torment he unleashed on others ultimately destroyed him as well. The racist rant and its devastating impact. The scandal that first cracked Hogan's public armor occurred not in the violence of the ring, but in a private recording made in 2007. During an encounter with Heather Clem, Hogan erupted in calm, deliberate slurs as he railed against his daughter Brooke's choice of romantic partner based solely on race. These were not heat-of-the-moment slip-ups or words taken out of context. They were clear, intentional expressions of hatred. For a daughter on the cusp of adulthood, just 19 at the time, discovering that her father harbored such vile prejudice was nothing short of shattering. The knowledge that the man she admired and trusted could so casually dismiss an entire group of people pierced to the core of their relationship, altering every subsequent interaction. Public outrage was swift and merciless. WWE terminated his contract, removed his Hall of Fame profile, and major merchandisers like Mattel and Walmart pulled his likeness from shelves. Civil rights groups condemned him, colleagues distanced themselves, and the carefully built facade of the all-American hero crumbled overnight. Yet the personal toll on Brooke eclipsed any professional downfall. She had to reconcile the image of her father as protector with the revelation of his deep-seated bigotry, a psychological rift that no amount of apology could mend. Affairs, betrayals, and the sex tape scandal. Beyond the racist tirade lay a series of betrayals that exposed Hogan's disregard for loyalty, trust, and the emotional well-being of those around him. In 2006, he engaged in a clandestine affair with Heather Clem, the wife of his close friend Todd "Bubba the Love Sponge" Clem, only to have their encounter secretly recorded. While Hogan claimed ignorance of the recording device, the affair itself was a profound violation of friendship and marital vows. To betray a friend by sleeping with his spouse is already a moral transgression. To do so under the assumption of privacy and then find oneself at the center of a public scandal compounded the treachery. The fallout was intense. Bubba's reputation was ruined, Heather's marriage collapsed, and Brooke was forced to witness her father's duplicity become tabloid fodder. Yet the affair was only one thread in a tapestry of infidelity. During his marriage to Linda Hogan, Terry's betrayals continued. Linda's 2011 memoir recounts his long-running entanglement with Christiane Plant, a trusted collaborator and friend of Brooke's, while his wife and child were under the same roof. The depth of that betrayal cannot be overstated. Plant was not some anonymous rendezvous, but someone welcomed into the family inner circle. Someone Brooke confided in. When Plant confessed in a 2008 National Enquirer interview, Brooke's sense of security and trust evaporated, leaving her to question every relationship around her. Domestic violence and psychological terror. Perhaps the most harrowing accounts come from Linda Hogan herself, who detailed years of physical abuse that transformed the family home into a battlefield. According to Linda's memoir, Hulk Hogan's rage manifested in shattering outbursts, tearing her shirt, throwing lamps, grabbing her by the throat, and slamming doors so forcefully that walls rattled. The brutality was not the occasional result of alcohol or stress, but a recurring pattern, an instrument of control and terror. Linda's 2016 Inside Edition interview captured the depth of her fear, as she admitted being certain he might kill her in one of his rages. Children growing up amidst such violence, even if not directly targeted, absorb the trauma. Anxiety, hypervigilance, and a fractured sense of safety become lifelong companions. Brooke has since testified that this abuse extended to her own person. Unexpected slaps, hair-pulling, and belittling at the dinner table witnessed by multiple guests. Her inability to distinguish between a normal family squabble and an act of terror speaks to how routine the violence had become. In Brooke's words, these were not isolated tantrums, but a household climate where fear was the default setting. Steroid denials and the pattern of dishonesty. If the physical and emotional betrayals laid bare Hogan's character, his public statements revealed a willingness to deceive whenever the truth threatened his reputation. In the early 1990s, when steroid use among wrestlers became a media flashpoint, Hogan took to national television to vehemently deny any involvement. On the Arsenio Hall show in 1991, he attributed his massive physique solely to rigorous training. Yet in 1994, under sworn testimony during Vince McMahon's steroid trial, he admitted that steroids had been common currency in the WWF locker room. This reversal was not accompanied by an apology, but by a shrug that times were different then, further eroding his credibility. Similarly, whenever racism or abuse allegations emerged, Hogan would first minimize or flatly deny them, only later offering half-hearted apologies when public pressure mounted. These cycles of denial and reluctant admission created a pattern: private behavior at odds with public persona, and outright falsehoods whenever the truth became inconvenient. Substance addiction and the collapse of health. Underneath the bravado and endless energy lay a body ravaged by decades of high-impact wrestling. After his 10th major surgery, Hogan became ensnared in a cycle of prescription painkillers, filling one opioid script after another long after the medical need had passed. He described chasing the pharmacy's refill calls like a dog chasing a bone, even when the pain had subsided. This dependency dulled his emotional availability as a father, leaving Brooke and her brother Nick to navigate childhood with a parent who was often chemically altered by relief-inducing drugs. Compounding the prescription issue was a long-standing alcohol problem. Hogan admitted to consuming up to 12 beers after matches to numb both bodily pain and performance anxiety. This level of drinking transcended casual use. It became a coping mechanism that fueled erratic mood swings, impaired judgment, and more violent outbursts at home. Not until January 2023, after witnessing behavior at a New Year's Eve party that he found intolerable, did Hogan finally resolve to quit drinking. That decision came too late to repair the years of relational damage, but it did underscore how deeply his vices influenced family dynamics and his own health decline. Linda Hogan's explosive counterattack. Just when Brooke's allegations seemed poised to command full empathy, her mother Linda stunned the public with a scathing, strategic response. One day after Brooke's revelations, Linda took to Facebook to label her daughter a narcissist and denied treating her as alleged, admitting only to a single spanking and occasional name-calling. This gaslighting tactic, attacking the credibility of the victim rather than addressing the substance of her claims, is a hallmark of psychological abuse. Linda's counter-allegations grew more elaborate, accusing Brooke of breaking her own collarbone in drunken misadventures and insisting Brooke's insistence on medical care was a ploy for attention. These accusations were timed to undermine Brooke's mental stability precisely when her trauma needed validation. Even more striking was Linda's willingness to threaten legal action against her own child, stating she would defend herself in court if Brooke persisted. Such an adversarial stance illustrated the family's refusal to confront truth or pursue healing. Instead, they weaponized the very courts Brooke had turned to for accountability: financial manipulation and emotional coercion. Amid the acrimonious family feud, money emerged as another battleground. Brooke's mother cited over $3 million spent on Brooke's career, framing financial investment as evidence of love and support. Yet abuse experts note that financial control, equating parental spending with affection, can be a form of emotional manipulation, pressuring victims into gratitude and silence. The 2009 divorce settlement itself, in which Linda received more than 70% of liquid assets and a significant stake in Hogan's companies, lends credence to the court's acknowledgement of misconduct during the marriage. Further, a 2019 Florida judge ordered Hogan to pay Linda nearly $200,000 in legal fees, finding he had deliberately hindered her access to rightful funds. These decisions suggest that Linda's allegations of abuse and betrayal carried weight beyond mere theatrics, and that the court viewed her claims as sufficiently credible to warrant protective and punitive financial remedies. The aftermath: healing and new beginnings. Brooke Hogan's decision to break a lifetime of silence and speak her truth reverberated far beyond the world of professional wrestling. In a culture that often silences victims, particularly those born into fame, her courage set a new standard for confronting abuse. By choosing to maintain zero contact with both Linda and Terry Bollea, Brooke drew a clear boundary around her own well-being, signaling that recovery sometimes requires radical self-protection. In the months that followed, she leaned into the tools that had sustained her through the darkest chapters. Regular therapy sessions to unpack decades of trauma, daily journaling to chart her emotional landscape, and the steadfast support of a loving partner who helped her envision a future unburdened by the past. As Brooke embraced motherhood for the first time, giving birth to twins she had conceived away from the family conflict, she transformed her story into a platform for advocacy. Recognizing that children of public figures often endure hidden suffering, trading privacy for pedigree, she began speaking openly about mental health resources accessible to families in crisis. Podcasts, magazine essays, and foundation collaborations became avenues where she championed counseling, peer support groups, and boundary-setting workshops. Her message was clear. Healing is not a silent struggle, but a communal endeavor, and survivors deserve spaces to heal without shame. At the same time, Brooke reclaimed the Hogan name on her own terms. While history will forever record Terry Bollea as a wrestling icon, Brooke demonstrated that legacy need not be dictated solely by arena triumphs or television ratings. In speaking her truth, she gave the name Hogan a new dimension, one that encompasses the survival of abuse, the demand for accountability, and the power of a daughter to redefine her lineage. Her personal and professional rebirth has inspired others to confront their own hidden wounds, proving that the end of one chapter can ignite the beginning of another, more authentic narrative. A legacy in shards. Terry Hulk Hogan. Bollea's legacy now lies irrevocably divided between the mythic hero who electrified stadiums worldwide and the flawed man whose private failings wrought devastation on his closest kin. The contrast between these selves has forced wrestling fans, casual observers, and friends alike to grapple with a painful truth. Hero worship can blind us to the moral failings of those we admire. Brooke's steadfast refusal to reconcile with her parents, even as they publicly attacked her credibility, underscored the depth of the family's fractures. Her courtroom depositions, delivered under oath and substantiated by unexpected witnesses such as Todd, Bubba the Love Sponge, Clem, exposed patterns of violence and manipulation that had been meticulously hidden behind studio lights and camera edits. The racist tirade captured in that 2007 recording permanently fractured Hogan's career foundations. Sponsors withdrew, corporations scrubbed his likeness from product lines, and the WWE distanced itself, removing his Hall of Fame profile in a gesture of corporate repudiation. Yet while those consequences were swift, they paled in comparison to the emotional ruins left in his wake. The years of verbal and physical abuse inflicted on Linda and Brooke corroded the trust and affection that formed the bedrock of any family. Fans who once saw a father protecting his daughter on reality television now recoiled at allegations of slaps, hair-pulling, and demeaning taunts that Brooke described as routine. In every corner of the wrestling community, conversations shifted from body slams and championship belts to questions of how far a public figure can fall when the walls come tumbling down. Hogan's struggles with substance addiction, chronic pain masked by prescription opioids and evenings drowned in beer, emerged as another fissure in the myth. The man who had built his brand on invulnerability was, in truth, dependent on chemicals to navigate life's simplest moments. This revelation did more than humanize him. It showcased how the relentless pursuit of toughness can morph into self-destruction, particularly when fame precludes genuine vulnerability. In the end, the closest allies and most ardent fans found themselves at a crossroads, reconciling admiration for Hogan's contributions to wrestling with the inescapable knowledge of the pain he had caused. The resulting legacy is not one of simple triumph or disgrace, but a mosaic of both, an example of how greatness in one arena does not inoculate a person against profound personal failures. Conclusion: Brooke Hogan's courageous odyssey, from silenced survivor to outspoken advocate, has irrevocably transformed the narrative of one of America's most celebrated wrestling families. By articulating decades of mental, verbal, and physical abuse in measured, unwavering testimony, she shattered the illusion of the perfect Bollea household and demanded accountability from those who had profited from her silence. The corroborating voices of unexpected witnesses, the public unraveling of her mother's gaslighting responses, and the legal affirmations of her claims all combined to expose a tapestry of violence, racism, betrayal, and financial coercion long hidden from public view. In dismantling the mythology of Hulk Hogan, Brooke performed an act of profound cultural significance. She illuminated the insidious ways in which power and fame can shield abuse, forcing an industry built on spectacle to confront the human costs behind the curtain. Yet her story is not one of victimhood, but of transformation. By refusing to remain a character in her parents' drama, she authored her own narrative, one that honors resilience, the necessity of setting boundaries, and the transformative potential of truth. As the wrestling world mourns the loss of an icon, it must also reckon with the lessons unearthed by Brooke's revelations. True strength cannot be measured solely by victories in the ring, but by the capacity for empathy, integrity, and compassion toward those we hold dear. In the end, the most enduring legacy may be Brooke's, a testament to the enduring human spirit, the demand for justice in the face of betrayal, and the unassailable truth that even the most storied names can and must be held accountable.